Hello?
So,
Can you hear me, Professor?
disturbance.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, but there's a bit of back.
Oh.
So, Maria, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling better, Professor. Only I need to take care for the food because some food created me like gases and all, no? But I feel better. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry, Professor, but I'm, walking to my home.
You didn't go to the college.
No, I went to college, but actually I finished very late today. So
Okay.
I'm here walking to my home.
Okay.
On?
Yeah, I said okay. Yes.
Okay, okay.
I think the others have decided that there will be no class.
Okay.
That seems to be the way it is. I
Okay. Sorry?
have this rather funny problem. The computer is showing 6:30 p.m.
Uh-huh.
and my watch is showing 6:34 p.m. Both say that they are adjusted as per the International Atomic Clock. Um, I don't know. It's to believe, it's not to believe.
Yes.
Shall we get going?
Sorry?
Shall we start off?
Yes, I guess, yes, Professor. Only you and me are in the session, right?
Yeah. I always
Okay.
said for me, one is a crowd.
Okay, it's okay, Professor. We can start.
We'll start. If anybody wants to join, they can.
Okay, okay, sure, sure.
Yeah. Uh, I was talking to you about empiricism. Okay. And I told you that empiricism constituted a very big change in the way in which people were thinking. Okay. For all practical reasons, right up to uh, if you put aside Machiavelli, right up to people like More, the belief that we are born with innate knowledge and that this will basically uh, manifest itself when it comes into contact with the world. Okay, and the um, greatest proponent of this kind of a theory is Plato. Plato believed that Everything is in our mind. So for him, the ideal is the real. That which is in the form of an idea is that which is real. So if you ask him, and he would believe that it has to be perfect in order to be real. So if you ask him, which is the perfect horse, his answer to that is the idea of the horse that you have in your head. Similarly, when he was asked, which is a perfect circle, he also said it is the idea of the circle that is there in your mind. So here we have a concept of an active mind, a mind that is uh, active even as we are born. Okay, and this has been the dominant paradigm for quite some time until John Locke, with his essay on human understanding, uh, changed the outlook of people to this. John Locke basically said, there's nothing in your mind when you're born. It is a tabula rasa or an empty tablet of stone on which nothing is carved. Okay, so if you want a more modern analogy, I think you can take uh, a white paper on which nothing is written. That's a tabula rasa. And he said that's how the mind is when we are born. It is through the medium of the senses, okay, or sense perception, which includes smell, sight, okay, the uh, feel. So all these five senses that people talk about, those are the senses that actually internalize a world which is external to us. So for us, we have no great status, like we are born with knowledge. Knowledge is a debt. John Locke says all that is nonsense. We are not different from any other animal. We are not different from any other living creature. And he therefore argues that uh, there is a bit of a, what should we say? He argues that there is a wrongness in the kind of construct given by Plato. So he says we are like the other objects in the world. The world is not in our head. We are in the world. Just like there are plants, trees, just like there are other animals, just like there are inanimate things, we are uh, basically like them. So the process of knowledge accumulation is something that starts with the sense perception. Okay, when you touch something which is hot or you learn not to touch that kind of a thing again. And if you go to some place which is malodorous, then you'll say, I don't want to go back there again. I'll possibly take another route. Okay, so he would basically say that what uh, our senses give as inputs into our brain, uh, those are the ones that over a period slowly become knowledge. That is the thing that he's talking about. I had also told you that there is another dimension he talks about, which is cognition. Now, if you look at cognition, cognition is as important or more important than sense perception. See, you must understand that our senses don't act sequentially. Okay, they don't act sequentially. These senses of ours are those which are all acting at the same time. So your olfactory senses, your auditory senses, okay, your sense of touch, all these things are acting at the same time. So the question that Locke asked himself is that if the brain is a purely passive thing, which is just gathering information coming into our head, then how is it able to make sense of all this information and create it into knowledge? That is basically what uh, is the question asked by. Uh, this is the question that is basically asked by Locke. He asks himself. So he says the brain has another function, and that function is cognition. Cognition is the basis of recognition. Recognition is recognition. All right, if you've forgotten about something, and then after you look at it, or somebody gives you a clue, and when you remember what that thing is, it becomes recognition or recognition. But the primary thing is cognition. So why are we talking about cognition? The question is, if all our five senses are working at the same time, how is the brain able to make sense of all these senses that are going in? Okay, so just let's have an imaginary scenario. The imaginary scenario is that there is, let's say, we've gone to watch uh, a movie. So we are sitting in a movie theater, and we decide that, let's make a bit of a picnic of this. Why should we only sit and stare at the screen? So what we do is we pick up popcorn. Okay, we pick up maybe a bit of Coke, uh, and then if there is something else which attracts us, we buy that as well, and we go into the theater. So while we are in the theater, now what are we doing? We are seeing the images being projected on the screen. We are hearing the soundtrack that is coming through the sound system that is there in the cinema theater. Okay, so two of the senses are working. Now, if we decide we are going to eat something while we are going to taste something while we are seeing this movie, let's say we start eating popcorn. Now you know that taste is also that which is brought out by smell, odor. So if you have that nice fresh popcorn odor, that is giving you a good taste as well. So two things are happening there. Okay, you're able to smell something nice. You're also able to eat it and taste it. Similarly, your mouth is going dry. You pick up a can of Coke or whatever and drink it. Now, in all this, are you able to make sense of the storyline of the film that you are watching? Okay, that is something that we need to understand. Are you able to make sense of the film that you are watching? Because in order to make sense of the film, we also need to look at it and we also need to hear the soundtrack. And then we have all these other deviations. So are we losing track of the film? Are we losing track of what is happening there? No. We are able to understand the film as we see it. We are able to understand the soundtrack as we hear it. We are also able to enjoy our popcorn. Okay. And so all five senses work together, yet each of them is separated from the other in order to tell you what one sense is doing and what another sense is doing. Okay, so this particular function is actually called cognition. Okay, cognition, because you are able to do several things which involve all the senses. The senses are all working together simultaneously and sending inputs into your brain. And you are able to make sense of them. You can understand the storyline, can understand what is happening in the film. You can also understand if somebody is having a loud conversation in the seats next to you. So you'll say, please, could you not talk while we are watching the movie? Okay, so we are able to do all this. So this for John Locke is the function of cognition. Okay, so the internalization of the external world happens one through sense perception and the making sense of the sense perception is done by cognition. So those are the two most important functions that our mind or brain is capable of. Okay, so this for him is the absolutely alternative construct to the Platonic construct. Okay, here we are able to uh, understand things which are happening, even though we were born with nothing in our head. Some people like me remain with nothing in our head, but that's okay. Okay. I suddenly realized, I wonder what happened to the moon rover and lander. That's probably why people are not here today. They're all busy watching the descent of that into the southern side of the moon. Yeah. So anyway, now that we've started, let's go on. And yeah, so we are basically looking at all these kind of things uh, and making sense of them. So the essay concerning human understanding is a seminal essay that overturned people's understanding of what constitutes understanding. So we are looking at people's understanding of what constitutes understanding. Now, what constitutes understanding, therefore, basically means there are objects outside of you. There are objects outside of you, and you're internalizing them. I will give you one example today. I'll give you one example now. It's only a question, and I will not answer that question. Answer the question later. So, what is the question? A typical empiricist who is inspired by Locke will ask a question which says, can you know what a dog is if you haven't seen a dog? Okay. Can you know what a dog is if you have never seen a dog? So that is one question that is asked. The Platonist, the idealist, is not easily stumped. He's not easily stumped by this. He says the very first time that you're seeing a dog, how do you know it is a dog? How do you know it's not a bull? It's not a horse. How do you know that it's a dog? Okay, this is not a question which is irresolute. It has a fantastic answer thanks to Noam Chomsky, especially from his days as a linguistic philosopher. Okay, so I'll get to that later. But today we'll talk about uh, empiricism now. Now, what is the difference between somebody who calls himself an empiricist and somebody who refuses to call himself an empiricist? An empiricist is one who believes in the idea of objectivity. Okay? An empiricist believes in the idea of objectivity. So, what is objectivity? If I ask you people what is objective, you'll say one word answers. Those are objective, and long answers are subjective. That is not true. When you say something is objective, what you're essentially saying is that this something that you're saying cannot be changed by the intervention of any variable from any side. So I've given you this example before. If I say today, whatever the day, who is the Prime Minister of uh, India? You'll say Narendra Modi. It doesn't matter whether you like him, doesn't matter whether you hate him, whatever it is, the facticity of the matter decides its objectivity. Facticity is that he is the Prime Minister. He's been elected by the people of India. So that is what makes it objective. If I think he's a third-rate Prime Minister, it really doesn't matter. That's just an opinion that I have. Nobody cares about my opinion. Nobody gives two hoots about what I think about Narendra Modi. Okay, so objectivity is that thing which does not or cannot be altered by likes and dislikes or judgments, which are based in the mind of an individual. Okay? Now, if I ask this question a bit differently, if I ask this question and say, well, is Modi a good Prime Minister? Or is Modi a bad Prime Minister? Now, both these variables, good and bad, are insufficient variables. If you say, is Modi a good Prime Minister? In what sense are you saying that he is a good Prime Minister? If you say Modi is a bad Prime Minister, what variable are you using in order to say that he's a bad Prime Minister? Now, the choice of the variable depends upon me, the perceiving subject. Okay? The choice of the variable. Maybe I don't like people who have a white beard. Okay, that's why I put a spot here. So if you look at it that way, then what we actually see is that my dislike for the color white is making me also dislike the person who's wearing clothes of that particular color. So it's a subjective like. And this is arbitrary. This is arbitrary. Okay? Somebody might like somebody wearing white. So that again is something that is decided by it's decided by the the subject, perceiving subject. If the perceiving subject likes white, and if the prime minister is wearing white, he'll say, I think he's a good prime minister. Now, this is both black and white colors which are coloring uh, our feelings about the prime minister of the country are those which basically are arbitrary. And somebody can ask you seriously, how does it matter what color of clothes a prime minister wears in your assessment of his being a prime minister? Now, somebody might want to take up serious variables, which are, let us say, the growth, the GDP, gross domestic product. How much growth has it shown in the last, say, 1 year, especially after the pandemic? How has the Indian economy recovered? Okay, if you ask yourself this particular question, then the answers coming for this would also be different. People will see the GDP. They might even compare it with that of another country and say, no, this is not any great GDP. So we are just about okay. Somebody might see another angle to it, which is welfare schemes, you know, giving the poor people something which changes their lives, at least peripherally. So if we look into these, then what is the picture that we are getting? You might get a completely different picture. Okay, we might get a picture wherein we are uh, looking at a not so impressive uh, performing economy in terms of its GDP, but an economy that is doing reasonably well in terms of looking after its poorer citizens. Okay, so it is also the choice of variables that determines what is it that you are investigating and what kind of an answer are you going to get for that. So let's look at it now. And let's look at it. It's pretty straightforward. The more serious the variable you choose, the more complex the variable you choose. Empiricism will get more and more vague and less precise. Because, you could be asking questions of two variables. Okay, let us say uh, the performance of the uh, economy of India is very poor, but it stands out in terms of giving succor through measures uh, which benefit the poor. Now, you have to understand that it is what you uh, basically, what should I say? It is what you basically
I'm here again.
at has to have some kind of connection. If somebody says, how much money did you make yesterday? Or how much money did you have as of yesterday? I say I had 1,000 rupees. So what did you do with that? Do you still have something out of those 1,000 rupees? Suppose I tell you, no, I actually gave 5,000 away to charity. Then you are asking yourself a question. When the money that you are possessing is only 1,000 rupees, how were you able to distribute 5,000 rupees to people? There's obviously something wrong. Okay, so what people call this is an attempt by uh, what should we say, uh, by economics, which is on economists, which is not able to reconcile two figures. If you have 1,000, then you can't spend 5,000. If you say I spent 500, yes. So that has to be rectified. Now, are economic variables suggesting themselves automatically to you? If you take up empiricist or empirical studies, is somebody giving you, uh, this thing is fine, this thing is consistent with this? No, it's up to you to find out, right? So, despite the fact that a lot of people have tried to emphasize on how empirical knowledge is certain knowledge, it is objective knowledge having nothing to do with the researching subject. That proposition is challenged by the example I've given. Okay, actually, even my mind is pulling me to the Chandrayaan, Vikram. So I'll end this class here today, with your permission. We reassemble tomorrow and
Okay.
discuss this. And if the Chandrayaan fails, we'll have something to discuss, I guess. And if it doesn't, then we'll have something to boast. They're not better than Russia. Okay. So thank you very much. So we'll pick up this notion of how there is no objectivity, but there is only objectified or an attempt at objectifying knowledge. That is what we will see. The difference between objective and objectification. We'll put that up tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Good night.
Okay. Good night, Professor, and sorry for the intermittence.
No. That's
Very interesting point. I have some questions, but I prefer to be a more quiet place to doing that questions.
you can ask tomorrow.
No? Really. But my connection is very unstable, and maybe we can take more time. No, because it's related to one example that you give about the perceptions in accordance to John Locke. I don't know if it's related with the, Plato, he has a kind of tale about cave, how, and the liberty dilemma, how the peoples know if they are free or have liberty if they never know before, no? I think Plato's caves, my question is, Plato cave is could be a good example to talk about it. For example, when you exactly know if freedom exists, or in that case that you said, like the dog is dog, no, that a knowledge is a real knowledge. I don't
Yeah,
know if you got my point.
I got your point. So let's do it tomorrow, and we'll start the class with this question.
Okay.
Trying to answer this question, and we'll proceed. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you, Maria.
Okay, don't worry. See you tomorrow, Professor.
See you tomorrow.